Hello there, little god monsters. How are you doing today? It's actually a very beautiful day in England today. The sun is shining. It's about 3 degrees outside, so it's pretty cold, but it's quite a nice day. Anyway, we are back to the magic faraway tree, and we are going to chapter 6. So the last chapter, they went up to Roundabout Land. I'm not sure I would like Roundabout Land. You just go round and round and round and round. I think I might get dizzy and feel a bit sick. Anyway, let's see what happens in chapter 6. This is Moonface and the Slippery Slip. The children clung to the top of the branches of the faraway tree whilst the rabbits slid down a little bit lower. They could still hear the enchanting music of Roundabout Land as it swung around overhead. "We better get home," said Joe in a rather quiet voice. "It's been just a bit too exciting." "Come on then," said Beth, beginning to climb down. It will be easier to get down than it was to climb up. But Franny was tired. She began to cry and she clung to her branch. She was the youngest and so not quite as strong as Joe and Beth. "I'll fall," she cried. I just know I'll fall." Joe and Beth looked at one another in alarm. This would never do. There was such a long way to fall. "Franny, you simply must try," said Joe gently. "We've got to get home safely." But Franny clung to the branch and wept great big tears. The two rabbits looked up at her, most upset. One put his paw in her hand and said, "I'll help you," he said. But Franny wouldn't be helped. She was tired out and afraid of everything now. She wept so loudly that 2 birds nearly flew off in a fright. Just as the others were really in despair, a small door opened in the trunk of the tree not far below, and a round moon-like face looked out. This is the picture. This is Mr. Moonface. "Hey there, what's the matter?" shouted the moon-faced person. "A fellow can't get any sleep with all that awful noise going on." Franny stopped crying and looked at Mr. Moonface in surprise. "I'm crying because I'm frightened of climbing down the tree. I'm sorry I woke you up." Mr. Moonface beamed at her. "Have you got any toffee?" he asked. He liked sweet chewy things to eat. "Toffee?" said everyone in surprise. "What do you want toffee for?" "Well, to eat, of course," said Mr. Moonface. "I just thought if you had any toffee to give me, I'd let you slide down my slippery slip. Then you could get down to the bottom very, very quickly that way, you know." "A slide all the way down the faraway tree?" cried Joe, hardly believing his ears. "Good gracious, who would ever have thought of that?" "I thought of it," said Mr. Moonface, beaming again, just like a full moon. "I let people use it if they pay me toffee." "Oh," said the 3 children, and looked at one another in dismay, for none of them had any toffee. Joe then shook his head. "We've no toffee," he said, "but I've a bar of chocolate. It's a bit squishy, but it's still quite nice." "Won't do," said Mr. Moonface. "I don't like chocolate." "I don't like chocolate either. It's horrible. It tastes like feet." "Won't do," said Mr. Moonface. "I don't like chocolate." "What about the rabbits? Haven't they got any toffee either?" The rabbits turned out their pockets, and they had very curious things, but no toffee. "Sorry," said Mr. Moonface, and slammed his door shut. Franny began to cry. Joe climbed down the door and banged on it. "Hey, old Moonface," he shouted. "I'll bring you some lovely homemade toffee the next time I'm up the tree if you let us use your slippery slip." The door flew open again and Mr. Moonface beamed out. "Well, why didn't you say that before?" he asked. "Come on in." One by one, the rabbits and the children climbed down through the door and went in. Moonface's house in the tree was very peculiar. It was one round room, and in the middle of it was the very beginning of the slippery slip that ran down the whole trunk of the tree, winding round and round and round like a spiral staircase. Round the top of the slide was a curved bed, a curved table, and 2 curved chairs, made to fit the roundness of the tree trunk. The children were astonished and wished they had time to stay for a while, but Moonface pushed them towards the slide. "You want a cushion each?" he said. "Hey, you rabbit, take the one at the top and go first." One of the rabbits took an orange cushion and set off for the top of the slide. He sat down on it, looking a little nervous. "Go on, hurry up," said Mr. Moonface. "You don't want to stay all night, do you?" He gave the rabbit a hard push, and the rabbit slid down the slippery slip at a tremendous pace, his whiskers and his ears blown right backwards. Joe thought it was a lovely thing to do, so he went next. He took a blue cushion, sat on it at the top of the slide, and pushed off. Down he went on his cushion, his hair streaming backwards. Round and round and round went the slippery slip inside the enormous trunk of the old tree. It was quite dark and silent and lasted a very long time, for the Faraway tree was tremendously tall. Joe enjoyed every second. When he came to the bottom of the tree, his feet touched a sort of trapdoor in the trunk at the foot of the tree, and the trap flew open. Joe shot out and landed on a big tuft of green moss, which was grown there to make a soft landing place. He sat there out of breath and then got up quickly, for he didn't want Beth or Franny landing on top of him. Beth went next. She flew down on a fat pink cushion, gasping for breath, for she went so fast. And then Franny went on a green cushion, and then it was the other rabbit. One by one they shot out of the little trapdoor, which closed itself tightly as soon as the slider had gone through. They all sat on the ground, getting their breath back and laughing, for it was really funny to shoot down the inside of a tree on a cushion. The rabbits stood up first. "We better get going," they said. "Pleased to have met you." They disappeared down the nearest burrow, and the children waved goodbye, and then Joe stood up. "Come on," he said. "We really must go home. Goodness knows what time it is." "Oh, what a lovely way of getting down the Faraway tree that was," said Beth, jumping to her feet. "It was so quick." "I loved it," said Franny. "I'd like to climb up that tree every single day just so I could slide down that super slippery slip. But what do we do with the cushions?" "Cushions, please." At that moment, a red squirrel dressed in an old jumper came out of the hole in the trunk. "Cushions, please," he said, and the children gathered them up one by one and handed them to the squirrel. They were getting quite used to hearing animals talking to them now. "Oh, I wish animals talked to us. That would be so cool." What do you think a lion would say if you met him in the bush? Apart from he might eat you. I don't know. Send me a message. Let me know what you think. He might say, "Hey, dude, how's things? Have you brought me a soda? Why not? Hey, what's wrong with you?" At that moment, a red squirrel dressed in an old jumper came out of the hole in the trunk. "Cushions, please," he said. The children gathered them up and handed them to the squirrel one by one. They were getting pretty used to hearing animals talk to them now. "Are you going to carry all these cushions up the tree to Moonface?" asked Franny in wonder. "Of course not," he said. "Moonface lets down a rope for them. Look, here it comes." A rope came slipping down between the branches, and the squirrel caught the end of it and tied a bundle of cushions firmly on the rope. He gave it 3 tugs. The rope swung upwards, taking the cushions with it. "Good idea," said Joe, and then they all turned to go home, thinking as they walked of the strange and exciting things that had happened that day. They came to a ditch and they jumped across. They went down the little lane and through their little back gate. By the time they reached the cottage, they were ready to drop with tiredness. Their mother was still busy in the garden, and their father wasn't home yet. So, sleepily, Beth made them all some hot milk, which they took up to their rooms to drink while sitting in bed. "I'm not going up that faraway tree again," said Franny, laying down. "Well, I am," said Joe. "Don't forget we promised old Moonface some homemade toffee. We can climb up to his house, give him the toffee, and slide down that slippery slip again. We don't need to go into any land at the top of the tree." But Beth and Franny, they were already fast asleep. Very soon, Joe was too, dreaming of the strange faraway tree, the curious folk who lived in its enormous trunk. That's the end of the chapter. So, I hope you guys are doing well, and thank you for sending me messages. I really like getting them, and I hope that you're behaving nicely, and I will send you your next chapter very soon. But I love you loads, and I miss you loads, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.